started streaming. Give me 2 seconds.
This one is So I was in a training All good?
Yeah, so far.
I think that it'll go by pretty fast. And maybe we'll let me see where we are as we
And we can go over, what you might go through. You want to sit up over here, or
I didn't have to drive, right? Yeah. Next weekend. I don't know why.
Is that going to work with the height and everything? I think it's too much leverage on it.
Well, actually, I want to set up we were told it's 10 north and
I'm going to ask everybody to go ahead and take your seats. We'll go ahead and get started. Good evening. Thank you all for coming to this public scoping session for the Vermont Climate Action Commission. I am Peter Walk. I am the Deputy Secretary of the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources and honored to be chair along with my co-chair, Paul Costello, and other members of the commission who are here, Joey Miller from BNRC, Bob Stevens from Stevens & Associates, your local Brattleboro kid, and we're all very excited to be here to listen to all of the ideas that you have to share with us. Apologize in advance for the absence of our fellow commission members. Most of us are volunteers, and so we're not able to attend all the meetings, but we're all providing notes. And as you can see, Bob here is providing video of the meetings, and all of those links are being provided to the commission members so they can hear all of the ideas directly from you as we then begin to go do our work and put ideas forward. We've been given a very specific charge by the governor to come up with action recommendations that help Vermont meet its ambitious climate goals, but also do it in a way that spurs economic activity, helps make Vermont more affordable, and doesn't leave anybody behind. So we take our mission very seriously, and we look forward to hearing all of your ideas tonight. You have all signed in, and we're going to call people up by the order in which they've signed in. I am going to make one exception for the young man in the room who needs to get home, who has graciously come and to offer us his opinion, so we're going to call on him first. I hope you'll bear with me there. Otherwise, I will call you up by the order in which you signed in, and I will try to do my best to call who's up, who's on deck, who's in the hole, in honor of it being the first game of the American League Division Series. So thank you all. There are also many other ways that you can provide us with comment, and we're not going to shut down public comment at any point. We're going to keep comment coming in via email, there's a web form on our VCAC webpage, and we'll happily provide that information at the end of the meeting so people know where to go. And then finally, if you're reading from a written statement or have put together notes on what you'd like to say, and you're willing to provide it to us, Josh, who will be taking notes throughout, will have a much easier job if he can simply provide your written statement as opposed to trying to remember everything that you've said. So if you could, that would be great, and just provide it to him when you're done, or a copy if you would like. With that said, we will kick off. At the end of this, I'll ask all of the commission members to talk about what they've heard tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about our next steps. But with that, we will hear from Eli Zamor Cohen. And feel free to just pick the mic right up out of that little slot and hold on to it.
Just if you want to.
If you want to.
Hi, my name is Eli. I live in Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm glad that the state of Vermont is participating in helping slow down climate change. I'm concerned about the fact that winters are getting warmer, and also hurricanes, which have been devastating to Puerto Rico and Florida and Houston too. I think if we can get more people on bikes and also try to be more local, we'll be able to slow down climate change by a fraction. But if there are more people in other states that could join in after that, if Vermont becomes an example, then it could spread into other states and slow down climate change by a tremendous amount. We need to do this now, or else other places will get devastated by hurricanes, and winters will become even warmer, which will make a lot of plants and animals not be able to grow properly. Again, thank you. Thank you to you guys and everyone else for letting me be heard.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eli. We're going to actually make an exception for his dad, too, because somebody has to take him home. But before we get there, I want to add two things. Because there are so many of you who have come out this evening, we'd like to try to limit people to their remarks to 2 minutes, just so we can kind of keep things moving. And there's other ways for you to provide comment. If we have time at the end, we can ask for people to make additional comments. And so I will try to give you sort of general signals, but eventually I'm going to have to. I don't have a big shepherd's crook, but I will give you the hook at some point. And then if a quick note on talking points, we're really here because we're interested in what the action steps are. What do we need to do to address climate change? And so, as much as you can, if you would focus your comments on what action steps you want us to take, that would be very much appreciated, because we're all very passionate and understand the why and the urgency, and we need to get to the what now. So thank you very much, and David Cohen.
Hi. All right. So thank you, the committee. It's great that you guys are setting up these meetings statewide. My name is Dave Cohen. I live in Brattleboro, Vermont, and I'm a founder of a group called V-Bike. I'm also a psychotherapist in town, and kind of specializing in eco-psychology. It's a really important part of what I do, and it totally connects with what's going on here. V-Bike, as some of you might know, is an organization that is all about rebooting the bike in Vermont. And that really means getting to look at the bike differently than the bike shops and a lot of the bike communities sold us a bike on as a recreational fitness equipment, toy, you name it, but not something that's taken seriously as transportation. So we've been introducing Vermont to a variety of different kinds of technologies and designs, cargo bikes, electric assist options, things for seniors, all kinds of mobility options for a diversity in our community. And a lot of these things have just not been seen in Vermont because of the fact that the bike culture here has been really not developed like you're finding in places like Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, but even places like Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City. Things are really booming as far as the viability of bike transportation. And the other thing that we do is we really think about how the automobile has literally colonized our landscape, our soundscapes, our biosphere, and also our bodies. So what we're proposing is really introducing technologies and designs that engage the human body, our senses, and our emotional connection to the world. And we see that as a really viable and really important thing. And it's also a great climate change solution. So one thing we're really for is putting a tax on carbon, putting a tax on pollution to fund really important solutions like what V-Bike does. The other thing I just would like to add is usually if you look at our energy, what?
You have 2 minutes.
Already up?
Just finish.
Oh, yeah, okay. The final thought is that in our energy plan, there's almost no mention of human power. And so human power is often just edited out of the equation as far as the energy profile. We want to bring that back in because the consequences of not using our bodies have already been shown in the health crisis and also mental health crisis as well. But I really thank you guys for being here and listening to us, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to have absolutely wonderful things to suggest and say. Go for it.
Thank you. All right. Starting back at the top of the list, George Harvey, followed by Caitlin Adair, and then Justin Lindholm.
Hello, my name is George Harvey. I live here in Brattleboro. I keep a blog called geoharvey.com, which relates to energy and climate change.
Hold the mic closer.
I
Just pull it right out of the holder. Yeah, just like
I
that.
post to my blog every day, geoharvey.com. It's about energy and climate change. I have a TV show that's based on that. I write for Green Energy Times. I spend a lot of time working with energy and climate change. And I happen to agree with Governor Scott. The Vermonters are taxed too much. And but the one thing that I want to see done is that we reduce a tax that nobody voted for, nobody discussed, no legislator ever took it up, no governor ever signed it into law, and that's the tax that is put on us by the fossil fuels industry in terms of the damage they do. That has been quantified. The American Lung Association says that the cost of that damage is $1.30 per gallon of gasoline. Damage that is done to people's health. This comes to about $330 million a year just for the transportation costs in Vermont. If you extrapolate that through the rest of our use of fossil fuels, you can find that we are spending about $1,000 per person per year on the health effects of our use of fossil fuels. And what I would hope is that the Vermonters, the legislatures, and the governor would really kind of take the bull by the horns and say, we've got to put a price on reducing that, and not be afraid to say, we're going to reduce that tax, even if it means we have to introduce another tax, which is much, much smaller. A tax pricing carbon, pricing the damage that is being done. And I want to point out, I talk to a lot of people. I'm talking about scientists here, people at the Audubon Society, people at the World Wildlife Fund. We have lost over 60% of our wildlife worldwide to basically fossil fuels. That is 60%. We've lost almost 2/3 of our wildlife in the last 40 years. We've lost upwards of 70% of our seabird population over a period of 60 years. We are losing trees in Vermont. We're losing the upland habitats on the mountaintops are withdrawing as they're running into competition from deciduous trees that are taking their place. Our coldest night of the winter, the thing that keeps the pests out, the thing that blocks the woolly adelgids, the thing that blocks Lyme disease, have gone up by 10 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 30 years. There is a big cost to this, and the big cost is caused by our use of fossil fuels. And anything we can do that's going to cause people to use less fossil fuels is going to be probably of significant benefit. And again, I would hope that the governor and the legislators would do what has to be done to put a price on carbon. And I thank you very much for giving me the time to say this to you.
Caitlin, followed by Justin, and then Doug Grant.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Adair. I'm from Westminster. I've lived in Vermont since 1973. So I've been here a long time. My hair has gotten gray in Vermont. I'm the founder of the Living Earth Action Group. We meet weekly in Westminster as a response to what feels like a terrible threat to our planet. And we are at a pivotal moment in human history. The Earth is warming fast, and our scientists are trying to figure out why and what to do about it. One remedy is to burn less fossil fuels. This is good, and I support a tax on carbon, but it is not enough. Microbiologists, hydrologists, and soil scientists are now pointing out another huge cause of carbon imbalance and global warming. That cause is loss of healthy topsoil. We've all heard for decades about topsoil loss, but did you realize that when topsoil is lost, carbon is released into the atmosphere? That's a result of topsoil loss. Anyway, that when topsoil is lost and compromised by plowing and chemical agriculture, it is rendered unable to hold water. When rain falls on eroded and compromised topsoil, it runs down to rivers and the sea, carrying nitrogen and phosphorus and topsoil along with it, polluting our waterways. Let Vermont be the first state to support our farmers in creating topsoil, not destroying it. Let us be the first state to clean up our waterways by banning glyphosate herbicide, which is Roundup, since glyphosate use causes massive release of phosphorus into our waterways. I advocate the creation of a global cooling initiative that includes, yes, a tax on carbon emissions, but also education for our farmers in regenerative agriculture. We need to invest in the transition to what I call pro-life farming, or carbon farming, which sequesters carbon in living soil, creates new topsoil, eliminates toxins from our food supply, promotes healthy food, plants, people, and animals. Vermont can lead the way. Thank you.
Justin, followed by Doug, followed by Daniel Quipp.
I'm Justin Lindholm from Mendon, Vermont, and I've been involved in trying to do responsible renewable energy siting for about 9 years now in Vermont. And I'm on the front page of the Rutland Herald today trying to do responsible renewable siting, and I got clobbered by a renewables person for trying to allow a deer corridor of 100 yards width through a solar panel site. The governor has said that we are too polarized, and I have seen this firsthand. An actionable item I think we need to do is we need to get some experts to actually figure out what is the playing field in this state for renewables. We're trying to play football on a baseball diamond. Mentioned baseball earlier, we'll just keep it going. But we've got people like, I filmed David Blittersdorf telling us what we actually have to do to get to 90%. It is a whole lot different than what people think. And he's not alone. There's Art Wolf in the Burlington Free Press. Lately, 1 month ago, less than a month ago, Jonathan Lesser in the Rutland Herald. To get to 90%, we're either going to have to bring in some renewable energy from Canada, probably a lot of it, or we're going to have to give up all airplane travel, all cars, including electric. We have to move into very tiny apartments. I know of very few people who are gung-ho renewable energy that will sacrifice like that. So let's find out through some research, just by getting together some scientists and mathematicians, economists, let's find out what this playing field actually is. It may scare the daylights out of us, and if we miss out on pulling enough renewable energy from Canada, it'll all go down to other places, and we're going to be left as one of the worst states when we get done. There's one thing we don't want to do is just keep adding to this renewables industrial complex where it's going to be a hurricane of money and political power, and that's about all we're going to accomplish. We actually have to get to the bottom of this and find out what we really need to do. Because David Blittersdorf is very pro-energy, and he said even if we do cut back and get off all airplanes, live in tiny apartments, we're still going to have to do 200 miles, continuous miles of wind turbines. This is how bad it may be, and we really don't know this yet, but I think we desperately need to find out. Thank you.
Doug, followed by Daniel, followed by Kelly Coleman.
Doug Grant at Putney. Can you hear me okay? No. I'm going to have to use 2 hands, I guess. Okay. I'm going to have to juggle these. So I'm going to hold these up so everybody can see them. I'm showing you the answers before I get into my story. I'm not going to talk much about the answers, but I'm going to tell you why I think they're important, and I have 2 more charts behind these. Basically, I started my career as a petroleum engineer at Exxon for 2 years. Then I worked as a corporate planner and industrial engineer for a Fortune 500, and I had several other jobs. But I ended my career at the California EPA. I found myself unemployed at age 57, and that's when I had an aha moment, and I decided to do something that wasn't business as usual. So I've been studying this since about 2004. Seriously, since about 2008, 2009. The hat is a Citizens Climate Lobby hat, and it's covered with buttons, or what do you call them? Buttons from pipelines. I'm a pipeline activist. I've been in Lincoln, Nebraska fighting the Keystone Pipeline, been up to Dakota Access down to Texas. I'm convinced, and I've been, by the way, because I was with Citizens Climate Lobby, I've been to Washington, D.C. more times than I'd like to admit. I've been in at least 70 or 80 lobbying meetings, and I've decided pipeline fighting and lobbying senators is not going to get the job done. We have to do this here. So my solutions is based on Vermont taking action, and I'll get to the details in a second, but now I have to shift gears. I'm going to leave this for you. Actually, there's 2 copies there. One's for me and one's for you. This chart explains why a carbon fee will not work. This chart demonstrates that for cars, this little dot way up here, that's automobiles, and airplanes and ships need something like $9,000 a ton to have an impact. Whereas coal plants, gas and coal-fired power plants need something like $30 to $40 a ton. All of the legislation you've heard about is something in the range of $25 to $30, $40 a ton, increasing to $100. Coal plants are already going by the wayside without a carbon fee. We need to focus on the cars and the trucks and the ships, and what's up in this center part here is the industrial stuff. Nobody's talking about anything in the range of $100 to $1,000 per ton. So that's why I'm saying we need to have a multi-tiered carbon tax. It's on the summary there. And the other thing is, I'm going to just take 30 more seconds. That slope indicates the pathways, and the red slope is the only thing we have left right now. We've missed the other opportunities to get to 2 degrees C. And you can see it goes to 0 in 2040. Well, that's 2 degrees C, and now everybody's saying, no, that's not good enough. We need 1.5 degrees. Now they're talking 300 parts per million or 1 degree C. And that's going to require sequestration, as the lady said here earlier. We need to sequester hundreds of gigatons of CO2, so that's my third point. So we need a hard cap because, oh, by the way, nobody knows how much of a carbon tax is it going to take except that one study. So I'm asking you to talk to some experts. Thank you.
I'll give you the first side. Daniel, followed by Kelly, followed by Kit Whalen.
My name is Daniel Quipp, and I live here in Brattleboro. I'm also a teacher in Putney. So thank you to the Commission for coming to Windham County tonight. I'm here to advocate for funding climate solutions by pricing carbon pollution. In particular, I would like to see the state fund programs that enable lower and middle income Vermonters to access energy efficiency and weatherization services. Earlier this year, Middlebury College published a report entitled Leveraging Energy Equity Programs to Support Lower Income Vermonters. And the report highlighted the structural barriers to energy equity, such as a lack of capital to fund energy efficiency projects, Vermont's older, drafty housing stock, and for renters, such as myself, the problem of split incentives. This is where a homeowner will decline to make energy efficiency upgrades because they will not reap the benefits themselves, and tenants lack the incentive and permission to make energy efficiency upgrades on a property they do not own. So I experienced this problem earlier in the year. Got an energy audit done through NeighborWorks of Western Vermont through their heat squad, and they came up with all these really great suggestions about what to do to make their home more energy efficient, thus to make my experience in Vermont more affordable and to lower my carbon footprint. And my landlord, who is a good egg, let it be known for the record, she doesn't have the money, she doesn't have the incentive, and I don't have any kind of power to do anything about that. So I would love for Vermont to fund solutions like these by pricing carbon pollution. Another concrete idea I have is a rating system kind of akin to New York's restaurant rating system, where when you're either renting or buying a home, you can see up front, nice and clear, how much it's going to cost for you to heat that home during our winters, how much it's going to cost for your heating bills and energy bills all year round. And that way, the market can dictate for us, which homes are saleable and which are not. Because I know for a lot of Vermonters who are struggling to make ends meet, the difference between paying your heating bills and paying for your groceries is a major cause of stress. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for coming here.
Thank you all. We've been running a little bit long, so if we can try to really get to the ideas that you want us to work on, we'll have lots of opportunities to delve into some of the details, but really, if you can get to what you would like to see us do.
Hi, I'm Kelly Coleman. I live in Brattleboro, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So, I am wholeheartedly in favor of funding solutions by pricing pollution, and I'm looking for Vermont to lead the way on conservation investments and investments in clean energy options and jobs. I could say more, but I think that's the key. Weatherization, transportation, agriculture, and clean energy.
All right, we have Kit, followed by Ann Zimmerman, and then Madeline Everingham. If I butcher your name, I apologize.
Hi everybody, I'm Kit Whalen. I live in Brattleboro, Vermont. I have a few action steps to share with you. Number one, the state of Vermont buildings, if they haven't already, could lead by example, switch to the LED lights, heat with renewables, use green cleaning products. I don't know if you're already doing that. Excuse me if you already are. My action steps are in no order of priority. This was pure brainstorming. Number two, encourage with tax incentives citizen solar for households, and also the opportunity to buy panels in solar farms, more of them, so that citizens who can't afford an array for their home can buy into something and be part of it and get credit on their electric bills, and publicize this. I know this is happening, but I always seem to find out about these things after the fact. Number three, I would love to see our state disengage from big banks that support the big notorious pipelines like Keystone XL and Dakota Access. And I've heard the idea floated, and I think it could be done, that Vermont state business could be transacted by a state bank that is not linked to big banks that fund things that many Vermonters don't like. Okay, just a couple more. Number four, a moratorium on plans to run fracked gas pipelines through Vermont. Number five, tax everything that emits carbon. Number six, encourage dairies to capture methane and make it available to Vermont agriculture, maybe greenhouses, and encourage via tax breaks eating locally grown food, the producers of the food, the people who prepare the food, the restaurateurs, and also reward people who eat in establishments that serve this local food. And finally, provide heating assistance to lower income Vermonters in the form of solar installations, as well as the heating oil assistance that we've provided in the past. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And this is for Josh, if he wants it, and if he can read it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please excuse me, I have to go.
Ann, followed by Madeline, followed by Linda Bailey.
Andy comes first.
Ann Zimmerman is first.
Hopefully I can read my own writing here. So my name is Ann Zimmerman, and I'm from Guilford, Vermont. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. So we all know we need to preserve the Vermont that we know and love. So moving to solutions, my particular perspective is that of being a low-income Vermonter in there too. First of all, I think we absolutely need to address the inadequate public transportation system in Vermont, both bus and train transportation, and I mean between different towns in Vermont as well as within population centers. We need to make it possible for people living and working in a rural state to get around without using so much fossil fuel, and I believe that this would also be an economic benefit to low-income Vermonters and actually to all Vermonters. Secondly, I'm also concerned that we make the technologies that are currently available to lower our fossil fuel use available to Vermonters of varying income levels, and not just those who have the funds to invest a lot up front. Like Daniel, I'm also a renter. I rent a leaky old farmhouse. My landlord is a struggling farmer. He doesn't have the cash to make those investments. I'm most hopeful that some of the ideas being put forward for putting a price on carbon pollution that include carefully crafted offsets for low-income people could address the issue of accessibility to carbon-reducing technology. Funds raised through putting a price on carbon pollution could be partly dedicated to this purpose, as long as we take into consideration the burden on those who are already struggling in our economy. And this would be a boon to Vermont's economy as well, because generally those funds would be spent in Vermont as opposed to the spending on fossil fuel, which sends money to companies that are outside of Vermont. And I know there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but my two are price on carbon, make it work for low-income Vermonters and farmers, and fix the transportation infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Madeline, followed by Linda, followed by Guy Payne.
I'm Marlene Everingham, and I'm from Brattleboro. And I wanted to speak for CO2. Don't stone me. It's horrible in the atmosphere when there's too much, and we all know that. It's wonderful in the soil. I don't know how many gardeners there are here. I'm one. My soil looks like black cottage cheese. And you know that when you see black cottage cheese in your garden, that your soil aggregates are really, really happy. It doesn't take too much to do it. I'm 80 years old. I've done it. I think that we're told by the National Resources Defense Council that each 1% increase in soil carbon in North American agriculture lands, either grazing or crops, could draw down 1.2 gigatons of CO2, about 2/3 of the U.S. emissions. And also, the retention of additional 1%, a gallon, 20,000 gallons of water per acre is retained. I don't do much watering in my garden. So I really want to speak for starting at home, Brattleboro, Vermont. There is a committee who is working on SB 43 about regenerative soils. Kind of pay attention to that, too. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I misread your name. Thank you for coming, Marlene. All right, we have Linda Bailey, Guy Payne, Alex Wilson.
Hello, I'm Linda Bailey from Brattleboro, and I appreciate that you came and that you're listening, and I hope that other people listen too. We're already paying a lot for our inaction on climate change and our dependence on the fossil fuel infrastructure. We know we're paying a lot in health costs, in reactive construction that has to happen on our roads because of extreme storms that are happening more and more frequently. If we were instead to proactively invest in our infrastructure to support public transportation and walking and biking options and carpooling and rideshare vans so that people who cannot drive still have an option for getting places, that would be paying for things we believe in and have a positive impact. They have a positive impact on our communities. They have a positive impact on our carbon output. We need to invest in small-scale distributed alternative energy sources so that communities and people can be more resilient when the unexpected happens. We don't need big things. Vermont is a small-scale place. We need to be supporting the small-scale things that happen. And we need to invest in energy efficiency. If we don't have to spend the energy, we don't have to pay for it. If we save that way, that's not having to pay for things that you're not doing yet. And if we can make that available and affordable for lower income people and renters, there are people in Vermont who can pay for that, but there are many people who cannot, and that's where we need to be putting our focus, is on supporting things so that we don't have to be paying for the things we don't want to be paying for. Let's be proactive in what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Guy Payne, followed by Alex Wilson, followed by Tom Fennell.
Thanks again. As everyone else has said, my name is Guy Payne. I'm the director of the Sustainable Energy Outreach Network here in Brattleboro. I also live in Saxons River. And I'm going to be very targeted with what I have to say. I'm not looking at the global issue, but we primarily are a training and workforce development organization here, Windham County, and also serving our neighboring counties. And the specific target that I need to address is the fact that we need to revise the Vermont training program. to allow smaller companies to participate. This is a $1.2 million fund to assist companies with their training needs. And the problem with this fund is that it's overly restrictive to the small businesses who need to participate. Granted, I'll be speaking in terms of the green building industry. There are other small businesses in other areas as well. But the reason I'm speaking to that is that our industry has been identified as one of the vital economic sectors through the state SEDS program. And if you look out over the next 10 years, the second most important or has occupation that will be driven in Vermont are carpenters, behind nurses. And that was a study done by the McClure Foundation. The current reality is that so many of our workers do not have those skills. Those skills are what many of us in trades call building science, which is how air, heat, and moisture move through buildings. 15 years ago, people used to say, if you know how to build a shed, you know how to build a house. That doesn't work anymore. Workers now need a greater understanding of building science. They need an understanding how to retrieve the kind of data, how to interpret the data, how to think in terms of systems. Because now we're no longer building a frame, we're building an integrated energy system. And we need the support of the Vermont training program because our smaller companies can't access this money. And yet these are the folks that we're going to rely on to do the weatherization, to do the renovations, to do the buildings here in Windham County. So this has died in committee far too often. It's got to change.
Here in Brattleboro tonight, I want to offer 5 specific recommendations. Number 1, Vermont should commit to instituting carbon pricing, preferably a carbon tax, when 2 out of 3 adjoining states commit to the same. Provision should be included in such a measure to mitigate the impact on border communities, perhaps through a reduced tax on fuel products within a certain distance from the border of a state that has not instituted such a tax. 2, Vermont should work to speed the transition to plug-in electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles by instituting reduced registration fees for these vehicles until such vehicles represent a significant fraction of new vehicle sales, for example, 40%. The lost revenue from such a measure could be made up for by modestly boosting the registration fees on gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. 3, establish a target of having a significant percentage of all new homes in Vermont, for example, 50%, built to net zero energy standards by 2025, and develop a public education campaign as well as incentives or regulatory actions to achieve that goal. 4, establish a target of significantly reducing vehicle miles traveled in Vermont, for example, a 20% reduction by 2025. Implement public education campaigns promoting carpooling, public transit use, and bicycling. Also investigate incentives for achieving this goal, perhaps even sponsoring a competition seeking ideas for achieving such a goal. The focus of such efforts should be on schools, employers, tourists, and residents. Finally, 5, encourage the creation of resilience hubs in communities throughout the state. These would be sites where residents could charge cell phones and laptop computers, obtain safe potable water, communicate with loved ones through wireless signal during times of emergency when the power grid is down, and in some cases provide emergency shelter locations. Such resilience hubs could be at schools, town offices, churches, private companies, and residences. Establish incentives or provide funding for creating such hubs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Tom, followed by Marilyn, followed by Ellen Schwartz.
Tom Fennell from Brattleboro. Boy, there's some tough acts to follow so far. These people have been doing their homework. I'm going to try to be basic and brief. There's a time-honored concept in business It's great if you can get away with it. It's called privatize the profits and socialize the costs. And the fossil industry, as a particular example, been getting away with this for a long, long time, a couple hundred years. And to use a word that's favored by our industrious leader a lot, this is unfair. We need to come up with a system where the cost of whatever it is you're doing includes the cost to dispose of it when it's finished and whatever other costs are involved. I think this carbon tax may not be perfect, but it's a way to approach doing this, and eventually maybe the idea will just spread across the board so that everything is this way, and it will return to fairness. Thank you.
Marilyn, followed by Ellen, followed by Nancy Ross. Ross, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Chiarello from Brattleboro. And I appreciate some of my cohorts who have already spoken to the benefit of healthy soils. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefit to the water cycles, and as well as looking at some management. Most global water-related crises, such as water scarcity, drought, desertification, flooding, rising sea levels, these are all symptoms of long-term mismanagement of rainwater and vegetation. So we have our municipalities on one side managing the rainwater, sending it all out to the ocean via our rivers and storm drains, of course. And vegetation, I think of deforestation that occurs. We talk about the farming. So twofold action steps that I propose is managing stormwater to keep it in the land and on the land rather than sending it to the waterways and ultimately out to the oceans. This will reduce some of the pollution that is, especially they're dealing with up in Lake Champlain from the runoff from the farms. It will require not major, huge, high-tech inputs. It can all be done on a low-tech basis, based on the work of hydrologist Michael Kravchik, who actually addressed the Climate Caucus back in March. He has done this in Slovakia and restored an area for less than the cost of that it would have taken to build a huge dam. And he restored all these waterways with the help of many, many people who became employed in learning to do this. And the waterways then became beautiful new ecosystems. So keeping the water on the land will balance the local water cycles, which will then keep also replenishing the water tables below the ground. We often just think of surface water, but there's a lot of water that's in the ground, and we really want to keep it there. The next piece, looking at the agricultural side of it, would be regenerating the soils and restoring ecosystems. There is a regenerative bill in the legislature. I think it would deem some serious look and see how can we improve it to make it something that's viable. Farmers will benefit in many ways from regenerative practices. It's much less costly than the current practice that farmers, or even regular people like us who are gardeners, you don't have to buy all those inputs because there are little microbes in there who will make all of the good things you need. Okay, healthy soils act as a sponge. They increase resiliency to floods and drought while replenishing the watershed. Not to mention that the microbes also make the uptake of minerals possible for the plants, and it improves the nutrient density of our foods. So, okay. All right, so my proposal is to incentivize the farmers then to adopt regenerative principles, and also to encourage municipalities to work together for watershed management, rather than each municipality have their own water management systems. We really have to look at the whole watershed.
Thank you very much. Ellen, followed by Nancy, followed by Maeve McBride.
Hi, my name is Ellen Schwartz. I'm from Brattleboro. Thank you very much for coming down to hear from the community today. I have a general point bunch of bullet points, and that's it. So my general point is that I think that we, as we move away from the extractive economy, we need to be transitioning toward locally based regenerative economies, and as you said in the opening, economies that don't leave anybody behind. The specific suggestions that I have for priorities are, first of all, investing in renewable energy, such as solar, creating meaningful jobs that provide a good standard of living, which we certainly need in Vermont. Secondly, to support financially and structurally energy cooperatives or community-owned renewables that give our communities democratic decision-making power over how our energy is produced, and that make renewable options affordable to homeowners like myself who would like to rely on renewables but are priced out of the market. So I own a home. I would love to be able to invest, do a solar farm. I know that eventually I'd be getting it back, but I can't do the upfront investment. And if I could, I would, and then my home would not be using fossil fuels. 3, create structures for local control over decisions about energy. 4, invest in public transportation, which would reduce the use of cars, but also increase mobility for people who either can't afford a car, don't have a car, can't drive. I will be in that position at some point as I get older. I'd like to be able to stay in Vermont, but I'm going to need public transportation when I can no longer drive. I'm getting there. The next one is to invest in weatherization to reduce fuel consumption and fuel bills for people who are struggling to make ends meet. 2 things to avoid. Avoid false solutions that claim to be so-called clean energy, such as nuclear, fracked gas being transported via pipelines, natural gas and biofuels, and also avoid carbon trading schemes that allowed corporations to continue polluting so long as they plant trees somewhere else, which is usually like indigenous land somewhere like in the Amazon. In the long term, so those are immediate term priorities. In the long term, I would like to see Vermont join with other states to do something akin to the rural electrification project that happened in the 1930s that brought electricity to rural areas. But this would be a renewable energy administration that would bring renewable energy to not just Vermont, but whatever other states we joined with to do that, to people around the state, in our state and beyond. If private enterprise can't do it affordably, then I think it's the responsibility of government to step up and make sure that we all have access to renewables. Thank you.
Nancy, followed by me, followed by Tad Montgomery.
Hi, I just wanted to, I agree with so many things, but I wanted to focus on transportation and the few ideas that I feel like need to be looked at. One is the idea of creative mass transportation, really looking at how do you do mass transportation in an area of low population density and in an area where people are aging and we really are need it now and are going to need it more than ever. And the old mass transit model doesn't work of large buses doing very limited routes. So I think we need a study to look at how to creatively do mass transportation, whether it's sort of like a free Uber type of thing where you have vans that actually, respond to people's needs, or I don't know. I'm not smart enough to come up with this. I'd love to work with people who have ideas, but I think that's one thing I would love to see. Another thing that I've thought about for years is bringing carbon use into the driver's ed program that we feed our teenagers. Every 16-year-old in Vermont wants to take driver's ed, and they all want to pass it. It's actually something that even kids that don't care about passing anything else want to pass. So it seems to me that talking about things like idling, how many pounds of carbon does your Toyota Tundra truck take compared to how many pounds of carbon a smaller truck uses? What does that mean for the atmosphere? What does it mean when you take a separate trip to the store 6 times in a day? I just think, having this kind of information in driver's ed might actually at least make students, at least the ones that care, understand that they have a role to play in the state. And we could actually, I don't know of this happening anywhere else. It could be definitely something that leads the way, having an actually carbon conscious driver's ed program. One of the last things I feel like I've been trying to get this complete sidewalk on, just complete sidewalks, Putney Road has been driving me crazy. Today's paper, someone was seriously injured on Putney Road, probably where there isn't a sidewalk because there isn't, and the state has no plans to complete this sidewalk for at least 7 to 8 years between downtown and where people really have to go to shop for a lot and to go to the New Millennium Theater. So.
Maeve, followed by Ted, followed by Kevin Chamberlain.
Hi everyone, my name is Maeve McBride. I don't live near here. I'm from South Burlington, but I was down in Brattleboro today. I'm director of 350 Vermont. And so I want to ditto a lot of what has already been said by a lot of great folks here. But I think what I want to share about is maybe more some meta level things. And I think having tried to stop the frack gas pipeline in Addison County, having fought alongside with Joey for things like weatherization at the State House, I feel like there's some limiting factors that are like system level change that could accelerate where we need to go. One of those is, I think that overarching the goals of the Public Utility Commission has been in the past to reach every corner of Vermont with electricity. That's why it was set up to do that. They're operating under the same kind of modus operandi. So they are thinking that we're still living in that era where we want to get, say, natural gas to or fracked natural gas to every corner of Vermont, or whatever it may be. Whereas we really need to be shifting towards very localized generation of power, not trying to generate it in one place and reach every corner of Vermont. Another thing is Efficiency Vermont. Efficiency Vermont was started to reduce electricity when there was kind of a crisis and we were trying to limit the use of electricity. Now we're at a time where we need to deeply electrify everything, right? Because we have to go completely off of fossil fuels. So, the Efficiency Vermont needs new marching orders from this level of government, I think. I think the other limiting factor that we all hear about is the money thing, and that's where carbon pricing comes in. We absolutely, absolutely need carbon pricing. I got to go to Germany. They spend 3 times the amount of money on their electricity, and they also use a third less. That can be used for weatherization. That can be used for the public transit we're talking about. That can be used for things that are coming, like how are we going to deal with the climate refugees when they come to Vermont? Because they are coming, they're going to be coming from Puerto Rico, they're going to be coming from Florida. I think along with the money thing, not just carbon pricing, but we need to be keeping our resources here in Vermont. So state bank, yes, ditto. Investments that are kept in Vermont for our pensions, for our retirement, not investing in Wall Street. It's not a great investment anymore. It's not a great investment to invest in any of the fossil fuel projects. And finally, I think this is not a direct thing with emissions, but I think is really important, is we need to be addressing the polarization in the state. There are a lot of great, the ideas that people are putting out tonight, a lot of these things that we have out there. We have carpools, we have Go Vermont, we have a lot of these initiatives. I think the reason that they're not taking off is we're not reaching people, and there's huge polarization. So how do we, and I think there are models out there, Slow Democracy, Susan Clark's work, trying to depolarize on these issues of renewable energy, because things are going to change, and we're going to need to not have polarized communities. Okay, thank you.
Tad, followed by Kevin Chamberlain, followed by Abby Mnookin.
Ted Montgomery, I am on the Brattleboro Energy Committee and the Windham Regional Commission Energy Committee. And I prepared testimony for this, and I ripped it up because you all said you want solutions. I was going to talk for those who don't have voices in this process. I was going to talk for the trees, and I was going to talk for the water, and I was going to talk for future generations. But you want solutions. The cheapest new source of renewable energy is wind, but the governor has taken it off the table. The most effective way to deal with climate change is a carbon tax. That has been documented. And the governor has taken it off the table. In my mind, the governor doing this is like sending an army into battle and saying, but you can't have guns. Or telling a baker to bake a cake, but say, don't use flour. We have solutions. We know the solutions. Your notebooks will be full of solutions. What we need is the willpower to implement them.
Kevin, followed by Abby, followed by Nancy Anderson. Kevin. Kevin not here. Abby?
My name is Abby Manukin. I live here in Brattleboro, and I also want to thank you for being here, for listening. I work with 350 Vermont, and I also work with the Vermont Wilderness School, but I'm here mostly as a mother of 2 young children. They drive everything I do, and I'll let the train pass while I get emotional. I have notes that I might not read. I'm here because, like many people in the room, I feel like we have the solutions, and what we're lacking is action. We have had 90% renewable by 2050 on the table for many, many years. We are nowhere close to that. People believe in climate action. They want climate action. They know that it's the only way to address climate change that is here and now and affecting all of us in this room, whether, in different ways, not as dramatically as it's affecting people in Puerto Rico right now, but nonetheless affecting all of us. And that's only going to be increased over time. So we need to be taking the actions that we know already exist, like putting a price on carbon, like a just transition to clean green energy, the small-scale distributed renewable energy, localized generation, like was just said, weatherization, public transportation, bike infrastructure, regenerative agriculture for carbon sequestration. We know what these solutions are. I saw the drawdown book. We need to be doing all of them. This can't be like all of the above energy policy like we saw in the last administration. Definitely can't be what's proposed in the current federal administration. No nuclear, no clean diesel, no natural gas, no fossil fuels in new government buildings, moratorium on frack gas pipelines in Vermont, taking our money out of big banks, including TD Bank, that fund pipelines, creating a state bank. But most of all, we just need to take action now. I appreciate this listening tour, but I really hope it's followed up by bold climate action now, and not another listening tour in 5, 10, 15, 20 years when kids are going to look at us and say, why didn't you do something now? Thank you.
Nancy, followed by Michael Bosworth, followed by Zach Berger. Nancy Anderson, yes.
Well, you've all covered so many things I was going to say, so I have to keep rewriting. Thank you for coming. I'm Nancy Anderson from West Brattleboro. I've lived in Brattleboro for 18 years. I was up in the mountain of Wilmington, so it was a little easier to not be so fancy in the way we lived, except it cost us an awful lot to drive down the hill to work. I think that the price that Vermonters are paying right now are high enough for our fuel. And if oil goes back up to $4, we're really going to suffer, and there are going to people be in cold homes. So, and I'm speaking mostly to low middle income about what the state needs to be concentrating much higher on, and that, for instance, if you want to have solar, and I believe one of you talked about that. I can't do solar because I don't make enough money to take a tax cut because I don't pay taxes. And I don't think a lot of people realize how many people over the age of 60, 65 don't make enough money to pay taxes. And there are many families that don't pay IRS taxes. And they pay reduced taxes to the state thanks to Act 60, I think it was 60. So that's embarrassing to admit publicly, but it is the reality. And I'm very happy that some families cannot worry about that or not be embarrassed about that. I would like to have a program where somebody could put solar on my house, or I could buy a couple panels and have a great reduction in price. I just don't know how that's going to happen because we have to charge somebody else for carbon tax in order for the state to get money. And that is kind of a conundrum because you're going to have to charge fuel companies more, but then your gas is going to go up. But if it could all happen at the same time, you know, I don't know where the money's coming from. It's just a real conundrum, and I think in Vermont we're probably much more educated than most states about this problem. So it isn't our intelligence, our awareness, it's simply we don't have enough money to go to the alternative energy.
Michael Bosworth, followed by Zach Berger, followed by Oscar Sekis.
Michael Bosworth from Brattleboro. Thank you, commissioners, for coming down. And I want to talk just a little bit, one more voice about taxing on carbon pollution, but then I also want to sort of relate it to Brattleboro needs. You know, I think, you know, the governor doesn't want to hear it, but, you know, the most efficient way to address climate change seriously is to put a tax on carbon pollution. And I think some of the legislators this spring came up with good ideas how to offset some of those impacts. There are 4 different ideas, and I think they're all worth exploring so that while you may be paying more at the pump or for your heating oil, there'll be other benefits for you to offset some of those costs so it stays affordable, those changes. So I'm definitely in favor of the tax on carbon pollution. I was also recently reading the 2003 Brattleboro Climate Action Plan, and Brattleboro has made some strides in some areas, which is good. One of the most ambitious part of the plan was to energy efficiency programs in the residential and commercial sectors, and that was actually 80% of the goals from that plan are in that area. But we haven't made a lot of progress in that area. So we need to find some way to find the capital and the incentives for people to take those steps, for the owners and the landlords to take those steps. And obviously at the same time, when we do a lot more of that work, we create jobs in that sector. So definitely in favor of that. On the Brattleboro Energy Committee, we've come up with what we call the Downtown Brattleboro Building Energy Program. And that's a program that could use capital to get started. And Tad Montgomery did a lot of work defining that. So whether it's us or other ways to do it with Efficiency Vermont or whatever, but really that needs to be addressed. So I'd like to just leave that as my final note. Thank you.
Zach, followed by Oscar, followed by Bennett Pierkowski.
Hey, I'm Zach, coming down from Burlington today, and first off, just want to thank the commissioners for your time and effort traveling across Vermont, listening to all of the ideas that our community has as it relates to addressing climate change. And the most common suggestion you have received over the course of this listening tour has been for Vermont to put a price on carbon pollution. I agree, we need to fund the solutions with a price on pollution. Carbon pricing is the most important policy we can implement towards addressing climate change. It will be the catalyst for the energy transition that we so desperately need. And in addition, from a purely economic standpoint, carbon pricing is a winner for the state of Vermont. We are at the tail end of the fossil fuel supply chain. We don't produce or refine any fossil fuels in Vermont, and 80% of what we spend our hard-earned dollars on leaves the state and our local economy. And so we've put together an informational packet explaining why carbon pricing makes sense for each of the sectors that the folks on this committee are representing. And I'd like to share a little quote from former U.S. President and native Vermonter Calvin Coolidge. I love Vermont because of her hills and valleys, her scenery and invigorating climate, but most of all because of her indomitable people. They are a race of pioneers who have almost beggared themselves to serve others. If the spirit of liberty should vanish in other parts of the Union and support for our institutions should languish, it could all be replenished from the generous store held by the people of this brave little state. And the climate crisis is hands down the most colossal issue we face as a society. And our situation has become even more dire now that we have a federal government that is hell-bent on inaction. The actions we take in Vermont have never been more important. And so I'm here to echo what the vast majority of those before me have said, that we need to put a price on carbon pollution. The facts are here. This will work for Vermont. All we need is for this brave little state to find the political will. Thank you.
Oscar, followed by Bennett, followed by Thomas Pollock.
Thanks so much for your time.
Mike.
Thanks so much for your time. My name's Oscar, and I'm a student at Middlebury, though I'm from North Florida. Just as many of you feel about Vermont, I love calling North Florida home. I love out hiking and canoeing through our swamps and pine woods. I love gators and herons and Spanish moss, and I love country living in North Florida, where people still have time to catch up with each other on a dock and hear crickets and frogs sing at night. But as the climate changes, I've seen our winters disappear and our summers grow ever more stifling. And as a young person, I look forward to a future that will not be 2 degrees warmer as it is now, but 6 or 9 degrees warmer. What will become of the wild home I love in such a drastically different climate? How can our communities cope with even more extreme heat and hurricanes, when 10% of our state is predicted to be underwater? Last month, my parents had to canoe to work and lost electricity for a week because of Hurricane Irma, accelerated by climate change. I want to say that climate change just isn't about only abstract statistics or far-off places. It's a threat to everything we love, our homes, our woods, and our way of life. And it's going to change our kids' lives even more. Here in Vermont, we've already seen 2 times more extreme rainfall events, and we'll have 4 times more days in the future of summers in the heat index. This is the crisis of our time. And though the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the next best time is today. A price on carbon means that the very real economic losses from climate change, harvest loss, hospital bills, homes destroyed, is accounted into our economic decisions. It spurs investment and entrepreneurship in industries that create new jobs and make Vermont energy independent. Carbon dividends can lift up working families. My hope is one day to come back to Florida and tell people they did it in Vermont and we can do it down here. Thank you very much.
Bennett, followed by Thomas, followed by Becky Jones.
Hello, my name is Bennett. I am also a Middlebury student, come down today. And I'm just going to add to the echo chamber of calling for a price on carbon. I think there's been a lot of great proposals today, but I think there's one proposal that meets Governor Scott's requirements that we work towards our emission reduction goals and also bolster the economy. Any objective analysis of carbon pricing shows that it will do those 2 things. And they did it in British Columbia with great success, and they've done it elsewhere with great success. And I think Vermont is uniquely situated to enact our own carbon pricing legislation, and I would encourage it to do so. Thank you.
Thomas, followed by Becky, followed by Lawrence O'Neill.
Thank you, commissioners, for coming and attending these things all throughout the state. I'm Thomas Polich. I have 36 years in the energy industry, including construction. I'm an energy expert. I started in oil and gas in 1981 and fracked all over the western part of the United States, Turkey, the Falklands, Wales, places like that. Shifted over into renewable energy sources in the last 20 years or so. I'm special counsel to a company called Drift Marketplace, and I'll leave the secretary with my cards and these notes. Drift is funded by the same VCs that funded Uber, Airbnb, Warby Parker, a number of other organizations. And it is a FERC LSE, it's a load-serving entity. It is a New York ESCO and a utility approved to provide both base load and renewable energy through standard and shared community distributed generation projects. How are we doing this? First of all, we have a software as a service that provides CDG subscriber acquisition. So all of you people that don't have access to solar can now do so in the next coming years. It has a beta subscriber program, and then through software as a service, it tracks their energy consumption, redistributing it at 1/400th of a second, the speed of light, to shave and redistribute energy to its other subscribers in the network. These are called prosumers. These prosumers, we also create a peer-to-peer energy trading platform. We are funding the acquisition of projects through a crowdsourcing program, and we'll provide project construction, sourcing, guarantees and acquiring, and guarantee of offtake. So we're doing this through an investor-free peer-to-peer energy platform, energy acquisition program. Quickly to the issue of carbon, I just want to point this out. I'll leave it with you. This is the conservative case for carbon dividends. It was written by James Baker, Henry Paulson, George Schultz, Martin Feldstein, Rob Walton, a very conservative think tank. Their first position in this program is a transfer of an increase in carbon taxing to source producers, noting that the 4 top energy producers produce $21.5 million in income, a transfer of carbon dividends. This is what we got to think. It's not a tax. It's a dividend transfer. It's not a tax. It's a redistribution of wealth. Border carbon adjustments and regulatory rollbacks. So I'm going to leave this with you guys. I'll leave my card. Here's what we need to do. Microgridding, it's critical. Second, microhydro production. There's lots of places where there is untapped microhydro opportunities at small kW scales. Storage in residential units so that we can contain, control, and redistribute energy on a much more granular level than 15 minutes ahead or day ahead services, and moving to a CDG or a community shared distributed generation network that can be done without the need to invest with solar on a roof and can be democratized. Thank you very much.
Becky, followed by Lawrence, followed by Jonathan Morse.
Thanks. Thanks for coming and thanks for having us. I'm Becky Jones. I'm a physician here in town and proud member of 350 Vermont and part of a new physicians group called Vermont Climate and Health Alliance, finally. I love this quote. I think MLK said it, a budget is a moral document, and I think we really need to consider that beyond prices and all of that. But I'm here to advocate for directing the pricing carbon pollution, especially toward active transportation. I think the savings to health of promoting biking and walking will far outweigh any prices. So that's what I'd like to advocate for. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Lawrence, followed by Jonathan Morse, followed by Ralph Million.
Good evening. My name is Lawrence O'Neill. I'm from Putney, Vermont. Again, thank you, gentlemen and lady, for coming to southern Vermont. We actually exist below Rutland and the 43rd parallel, which some of the agencies in the state don't seem to understand. I'm not an idea person. Many of you come up with ideas about solar and wind and these various ideas. I'm an execution person. Take an idea and see how do you implement this? One of the things I was thinking about was the carbon tax. My concern is, what are we taxing? Are we taxing only fossil fuels? Or are we talking about biomass also? There's a big concern that the 2016 Vermont Comprehensive Energy Plan, the amount of carbon dioxide that goes in with that wood use. By doing that, there was a study by a Maine-based nonprofit research lab called Natural Assets Laboratory in 2010 that they concluded that the amount of carbon released per unit of energy is actually greater for forest biomass than it is for fossil fuels. It's because wood is not very energy dense. It doesn't carry that much energy. The life cycle emissions from generating electricity at utility scale biomass facilities are about 3 times greater than emissions from a similar sized natural gas electric plant. So when we talk about taxing carbon, are we really going to be taxing all of it, or are we just going to be shifting it from fossil fuels to this push toward biomass, which is even worse? My second point with regard to this is that this carbon tax seems to be a regressive tax, something that's kind of to the antithesis of what Vermont is. I believe it would hit the working poor the hardest. They live in the poorest housing stock. The people here have talked about homes that are not well insulated. They pay more for heat. They also don't drive the latest Tesla or even the new Corolla that uses makes the best use of the fuel that it has. They drive older vehicles. They're the ones that are going to be paying the price on this carbon tax. Even if the program is revenue neutral, if one can believe that would happen, and it is executed well, there's still going to be a burden there. I firmly believe that we need to reduce all carbon emissions. I'm not against the carbon tax. I just would like to see it executed properly. And we need to make a serious investment in renewable alternative methods of energy generation, including solar, wind, and hydro. And I think there needs to be a push toward wind in particular, despite the fact that on a state level it seems to be put on the back burner. Thank you very much.
Jonathan, followed by Ralph, followed by Mike Ball. Jonathan left. Ralph, followed by Mike, followed by Jesse Haas.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Ralph Lima. I live here in Brattleboro. I represent Green Lantern in southern Vermont. We're a full-cycle developer of renewable energy generation. These days, it's almost all solar. We have set up solar projects in more than 50 towns around the state at this point, more than 60 projects, and a total megawattage at this point of over 27 megawatts. So we're deeply involved in the development of solar in Vermont. That's not what I really wanted to talk about. I think that if you look back over the history of different sorts of renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives in the state over the past 10, 15 years, there have been a lot of missed opportunities and dropped balls. On the one hand, Vermont has made some major achievements in energy efficiency and renewable energy. Solar, to me, is one of the examples. There's been a lot of progress, but there are other areas where there's not been much progress at all. 5 years ago, the conversation about energy and state policy was one of the things it focused on was the need to weatherize or retrofit 80,000 housing units in the state as a part of achieving the 90% by 2050 goal. I haven't heard too much about that recently. Another conversation several years ago was carried out by the Thermal Efficiency Task Force under Governor Shumlin, and it hung up on the whole issue of how to fund basically improving thermal efficiency and replacing carbon fuels with other types of fuels and sources of energy. And those are just two examples of a lot of energy and time and enthusiasm invested by a lot of people around the state without much of an outcome. I think in a year or two we may look back and find out that because of much more complex regulation, particularly in connection with siting, but not just siting, that solar growth may have in fact fallen off considerably during 2017 and 2018 compared to the years before. And so I think a couple of years down the road, the legislature may be debating how to reinvigorate solar in order to keep us moving toward our goals. So the reason I bring these up is that you are now part of a commission of, at last count online, 21 members. That's a huge commission. You're all talented people with access to lots of information and deep experience to dig into. As far as I can tell, everyone on the commission has spent major chunks of their careers fighting for energy transition and renewable energy and efficiency and pollution reduction and so forth. So all I want to leave you with is an urgent request not to let the work of this commission be a diversion, not to allow this commission to serve as cover for the governor, if in fact the governor is not willing to cross the line of implementing some kind of study or some sort of progress toward a carbon tax. We can't afford any more missed opportunities and dropped balls for economic reasons, for health reasons, for climate change reasons. So be courageous and be willing to take risks yourselves in making sure that this commission achieves something significant and lasting. Thank you.
Mike, followed by Jesse, followed by Michael Daly.
Good evening, thank you. Mike Bald, I live in Royalton, Vermont. Thank you for your time, and I'm glad to know that the governor has a climate commission. I'm grateful for that. I'll try to make it, is it Josh taking notes? Thank you, Josh. I'll try to speak in bullet points. I may contradict a few things, but I try to push the envelope on things. I'm not here to talk about a carbon tax, more research, more education. I don't really care about leading the way. Being first, being 49th, doesn't really matter to me. I'm not here looking for regulations. So again, we don't need, you can't squeeze a nickel out of people these days for various things, and we do have a pretty serious crisis in the world of opioids, which is taking a lot of money, as it should. But we talk about things we want tonight, and we have to realize they all cost money. So carbon tax, okay, whatever, but it's not at the top of my list. We just need to fund goals and creative solutions. I want to start by saying we have two things wrong. First of all, climate change is not the issue. The second thing that's wrong is water quality is not the issue. Climate change is not our problem. Our problem is frozen, hardened, non-creative and dysfunctional mindsets that can't get around the solutions to climate change. The mindset, living in what we've always done and hanging on to our old ways, is what keeps us from realistically addressing climate change. When you start with climate change as the problem, you've already sidestepped issue number one, the mindset issue. Water quality, people have said it already. We don't have a water quality problem. I've said this to the legislature multiple times. We have a soil health issue, a lack of soil. When the Heartland Dam, this is anecdotal, but when the Heartland Dam was built, they actually paid people to bring them, so to get access to bring topsoil to build the dam with in the 1980s, as far as I'm told. I didn't live here at that time. All of Heartland drains into the Connecticut River. So there you go. Our water quality issues trace to our dysfunctional, depleted soil issues. I'm a small businessman. I deal with invasive species. I'm very close to the soil all the time. I just want to make 2 points, bullet points hopefully. Generating energy, there's many different ways to do it. I'm a big fan of wind personally, but transmission is just as much a problem as anything else. And if people in fancy houses living on the Cape or with the ocean view or hilltop view, if they don't want to look at windmills or smokestacks or whatever it is, if they'd rather have the energy created 1,000 miles away and then transport it to them, to me the transmission is a big deal, especially when it comes to gas, pipelines, the crude and whatever that stuff is from North Dakota and so forth. My house is from here to the back wall from the railroad tracks. Who's going to pay? Who's paying for the hazmat response team in Vermont when one of those trains goes off the rails? They're already running fuel oil along Lake Champlain. When there's a train accident, who's supposed to pay for the response team? The companies aren't paying for it. It falls to all Vermonters to pay for hazmat response teams to respond to oil leaks. Well, how about we just don't bring oil across our land and then don't pay for the response team? That's my solution. Last point, I'll try to be quick. Carbon storage, yes, that's a solution. But you, the commission, needs to help people afford to work the land. I'm a one-man company, I'll never hire anybody, because it cost me $5,000 to hire somebody from day one for liability and workman's comp. If you want concrete solutions, I've said again to the legislature, give me the 300 prisoners that are sitting right now in Pennsylvania watching cartoons. I manage invasive species. There wouldn't be anything growing in this state without our express permission if I had a 300-person workforce. That's $15 million a year, according to what I read. The other thing about props are fun. Yeah, okay. Burn piles. Vermonters burned 40,000 piles. I'll pass this. I'll give that to you. Vermonters burned 40,000 piles by my conservative count of unwanted vegetation every year. I think that's kind of two-faced. I did very conservative math, and I came up with when we remove vegetation like common buckthorn, that's this one, this makes great firewood, whether you agree with burning wood or not. This is brilliant firewood. It covers our state. I was removing it today. Makes great fence posts, makes great firewood. Low-income heating assistance. We go to the federal government on our knees every year asking for federal income heating assistance. It's not fun being cold. I agree with that. Burn this. Pay for the removal of this invasive species by burning it in the homes. Save $10 million and let the federal government figure out what to do with that. Thank you.
All right, Jesse, followed by Michael Daly.
Hi, thanks for coming down here. Really appreciate it. A lot of people have talked about regenerative agriculture. I was going to bring the drawdown book and show it to you all, but it's on the table. And so you know how powerful it can be, you know, the whole kind of range of agricultural solutions that really can pull carbon down out of the atmosphere. There's nothing that does that better than a plant. And it does have, I think, the potential for one to be maybe of the most politically palatable of all the solutions that we've talked about. We're a rural state. We've got a huge water quality problem. We like to be known for our green mountains, not our green lakes. And I think this has a huge potential to really help our water. And you know, it's one of the things I didn't used to know about soil carbon, and when I learned about it, it was one of the things that gave me a really solid sense of, oh, I think we could do this. I think we could really turn this thing around. I never had a really solid belief in that before, and that we're in a place that could really do it. So it's the thing I'm most excited about, and I know that the governor last year kind of gave a thumbs down in a preliminary way, but I think the bill that was being talked about was preliminary, and you know, I think it's been pulled to have some more work done on it. I like that we have a Healthy Soils Initiative pilot program, and I'd love to see that pushed. And for it to be worked so that there are market signals. You know, I think if people understood that by buying a dairy product that is a grass-fed dairy product, you're helping the lake, you're helping pull down carbon, you're helping a farmer. If there was maybe a label for that, and you know, maybe a price difference, but even just if people knew, if there was just a label, a stamp, and people understood this is lake friendly, this is carbon clean, the market, you know, I sound like a Republican, but the market could be really helpful in this instance, and I think that if people knew about it, and people don't. The other minor point I would make, I know that VW is going to give us some money for lying to us about that clean diesel all those years, and I don't know what's the best thing to do with it, but I'd love to see it used in a way that you know, would get us a little bit ahead on the issue. I know VPIRG's talking about maybe clean electric school buses. I don't know if that's the best thought, but I'd like to take their money and do something really good with it. So, thanks.
Michael Daly. And Michael Daly is our last signed up speaker. If you'd like to add something at the end, you're welcome to if you haven't already spoken, or if you'd like to add to your comments.
Good evening. Thanks for coming down. First thing, I've heard the whole presentations of people tonight, and I'm beginning to think maybe Calvin wasn't just blowing hot air about Vermonters. It seems like there's a lot of thoughtfulness being applied to this crisis that we're all facing, and it makes me feel really positive that we can lick this problem, and not only in Vermont but perhaps globally. And it also makes me feel a little radical. I had a radical thought in the back there, thinking about the state, because we're talking about the state taking action and wanting action from our state. Excuse me, and I was just thinking, pretty soon the state is telling me that I can't put my banana peels in the garbage anymore. It's had the audacity and the authority to do that to all of us citizens in Vermont. And I'm thinking perhaps it's time the state found the moxie to tell the fossil fuel industry that it can't put its carbon in our air anymore. And on that sort of big picture, but it really is a matter of taking that brave step and just deciding that this is a form of pollution we no longer tolerate. My second point is my favorite point. The speaker before me and myself came here tonight in our wonderful full electric car, and I love my electric car. So as a matter of policy, I sure hope the state continues to promote the adoption of those types of vehicles. It's been marvelous experiment, bought it last year. I pay 30% less for every mile traveled than I would if I was driving my Prius, which is my other car. So it works economically on an individual level, but I charge it during the day in Vermont because our grid is primarily renewables during the day, so I feel like it's a pretty close to zero emission vehicle. I think it's like solar. I promoted solar energy for the last 30 years of my life. We have entered an era that nobody envisioned. The wildest visionaries in the time that I was trying to convince people to adopt solar did not see the world we have just stepped into in Vermont, thanks to our relatively modest efforts of promoting solar. And to me, I see the same trajectory with electric cars. In the 1990s, I built one that would take me 36 miles back and forth. The car I just bought last year goes 70 miles, and so I didn't build it, the modern technology built it. This year, the models go 200 miles. The evolution is moving at a pace even faster than we saw for things like solar. So before we know it, that world will be here. We shouldn't do things that will prevent it. Thank you.
Like to come up?
So your list has been exhausted?
My list.
Or are there more people on
There,
the list?
well, yes. Well,
sure. Then I'll wait. I
Okay.
want to make sure everyone else had a chance.
I'm Tom Simon from Putney, and my partner Emily Payton and I have started a company called Hempfully Green. We propose direct action to mitigate climate change through carbon sequestration techniques such as the addition of biochar to farmlands, free-range pasturing of large meat animals, and building with hemp lime, also known as hempcrete. Hemp lime building materials produce homes and buildings that sequester carbon, where the most current construction materials add to our carbon problem. Hempcrete has wide support in Canada, England, New Zealand, and many other countries in Europe. We're sucking hind tit again. We can build with this material here to directly help slow and reverse climate change. Hempcrete also delivers a building envelope of 75 to 85% higher efficiency, reducing heating and cooling costs. This building material also provides 5 other bonuses. It's virtually fireproof. It will stand for centuries, sparing more carbon by longevity, and it's averse to mold issues, of which Vermont has a history of buildings with health issues. It repels pests of any kind, and it's the best housing material for chemically sensitive people. It's superior to other alternative building materials such as hay bale and cob. Most people are aware of the housing shortage in Vermont. We at Hempfully Green want the Climate Action Commission to focus on direct carbon sequestration activities by supporting the use of this healthy and efficient carbon-hungry material. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tatjana Schreiber. I'm in Westminster. I don't have any prepared remarks. I'm going to submit something formally, but a lot of people have spoken about regenerative agriculture, and I wanted to support that, but I also want to add to that it seems to me the most important thing we can do for carbon sequestration is keep our trees in the landscape. Trees sequester carbon. The bigger the trees, the better. And I think we tend sometimes in Vermont to take our trees for granted because we have so many of them, which is great, but we are starting to lose our forests, and we're starting to see more forest fragmentation, as this recent Harvard Forest report suggests. And so I want to, what I would like to see is support for reforestation and for agroforestry. Agroforestry is a type of regenerative agriculture which keeps trees in the landscape and also keeps other perennial vegetation in the landscape, which sequesters carbon by not only in its bodies but in its roots. There's lots of, as Jesse was just saying about market solutions, there's a lot of types of agroforestry that can allow us to grow lucrative crops that grow in agroforestry systems, such as mushrooms, medicinal plants, like shiitake mushrooms and other types of fairly valuable crops. So I would like to see support for agroforestry for farmers that are doing that. I like the idea of a label, some kind of label that for farmers who are growing food in a way that stewards the environment and sequesters carbon. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the chance to speak. I didn't want to take people's time, since I usually get time in the legislature or in other public meetings to talk, so I wanted to hear from you as much as I'm sure you might want to hear from me, because you get that chance otherwise. Thanks for coming down here. In the legislature, at the end of the debate, it's often said, well, everything's been said, it's just that everyone hasn't had a chance to say it yet. And I don't know that I have anything to add right now, but I would like to comment on a few things. It was brought up that there are some bills in the legislature introduced at the end of last session which combine tax reform and climate action. And I think what Maeve had to say about polarization of our electorate here is really important, is for us to be able to reach out to people who might not be from Brattleboro or Burlington and think of this as second nature. There's a lot of people out there who don't quite understand yet how vital this concern is. And this is one way to get people's attention, is to highlight the economic incentives that climate action can be the source of. I want to also highlight what Lawrence had to say about making sure that lower income people are not adversely affected, and some of the ideas out there could be seen initially as hurting those people, and we want to make sure that's not the case. So thank you for highlighting that. And as we move forward, I hope we can realize that this is work we have to do together. Literally, our lives depend on it, and future generations. So thanks for the opportunity.
It's a delicate balance, but it should stay. So thank you all for coming tonight and giving of your time to share with us your thoughts and your passion and your sense of urgency. We all sincerely appreciate it and hope to build upon the ideas that you've given us and with our colleagues on the commission to come up with recommendations that really do lead to action. I made a promise to all of the folks around this table and on the commission when we first started it that this was going to be about action. It wasn't going to be an opportunity to sit around and talk and continue to talk and feel like we needed to have this conversation again in 10 years. The goal is to get to action. It's how do we all know we need to act. It's the how and how do we come together in a way that we can largely agree on and make progress and eventually get to progress that is commensurate with the challenge. And I would just like to ask Paul and the other commissioners to say a few words.
Well, key themes: taxation, agriculture, transportation, generating more local. These are themes that I think Vermonters are all wrestling with. They're key themes that we need to work through together, and we need to come to a point of mutual consensus, and that's challenging. VCRD just led the first National Climate Economy Summit in Vermont. We brought Paul Hawken, and Paul talked very optimistically about climate change as a feedback mechanism from the world telling us that we had to look at systems changes. And he also said we should be grateful for it because it points to systems change ideas that are entrepreneurial opportunities. Because the fundamental problem we have is as human beings and with society, how we intersect with the planet in an ecological economy. It's about an economy, the interface between the human being and the world, and finding the right economic balance that provides prosperity and general quality of life for all Vermonters is just an enormous task. In the face of that task, one of the most profound things that I've heard tonight, and I really deeply appreciate, is the advocation by folks here to be courageous. And I put it right back at each one of you that we all need to, in these times that are somewhat dark, times that we're conflicted, times that we're challenged, we have to have the courage to listen to each other, respect each other deeply, and then also the courage to act. And I appreciate the push to us. We're all in this together. So let's keep up the dialogue, and thank you so much. It's very, very profound and powerful discussion tonight, and I appreciate everything that every individual had to say.
Always really hard to follow Paul Costello, but I agree with everything he said. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out tonight and focusing your remarks on the urgency and the opportunity and the solutions. I took copious notes. A couple of themes that I would underscore besides what Paul highlighted, which really are important to me and why I'm spending time on this commission. We've had 2 climate commissions before that. We've done some good work in the state of Vermont. Everything that we have done so far is only taking us, falling short of halfway of where we need to go to our comprehensive energy plan goals, to our greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. The long and short of it, it's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, but I really believe you guys articulated it very passionately and compellingly that there's huge opportunity in that. I believe it will take political will. I think, we need solutions. Peter said it. I wholeheartedly agree, commensurate with the challenge that we're facing. And I think, I heard it from you tonight, we've been doing a huge amount of research on it ourselves at the Vermont Natural Resources Council, putting a price on carbon pollution in a way that is equitable and fair and supports low-income earners participating in that transition is a really important policy that we need to be exploring deeply as a commission. I would also say that, again, everything we've done in the state of Vermont has been, a lot of good things we've done have been quite intentional. We have had utilities that have been looking at innovating. We've established Efficiency Vermont, as Maeve said, and there's huge value in that, not just environmental but economic. We have the second lowest electric rates in New England, and we have, one of the fastest growing job sectors in the state of Vermont is our clean energy job sector. We can be putting people to work by figuring out these issues, and I think that's really exciting. And the last thing I just want to say is the governor has charged this commission and us all to come up with, solutions that get at, protecting the most vulnerable, creating an economic opportunity, and looking at affordability. The other piece of it that I just want to underscore is the need to focus on, both short and long-term affordability, and not just talk about the cost of action, but the cost of inaction. I think Abby said it very well when you're talking about future generations. We need to be looking at what it costs to put off the real hard solutions, the real hard conversations, and actually get down to business and brass tacks. So I say, please keep engaged in this process. Please keep your good ideas coming. The regenerative ag, the carbon pricing, the clean energy commitment, and democratizing that's really important. So I took a lot away from you tonight, and I'm looking forward to working with you all and others to actually move those solutions forward. I like the action in the Climate Action Commission.
All right. I felt back to follow all the way along here. I guess I'll go last. I just want to say that, it's an honor to be on this commission, to be working on this problem. It's also overwhelming. I sort of look at this as an immense problem, a lot of solutions, but a complex problem of which to get to something that is sufficient to really make a difference is a challenge. So I appreciate the comments, the energy, the consensus that I hear tonight, because it gives me faith that that perhaps Vermont can actually stand out. And it's not just Vermont, it's just not just the commission, it's not just the legislature. It really is going to be a consensus of the community within the state. So you people here tonight, some of you have dedicated your lives to these issues, all these thoughts, and things that you're working on individually are incredibly important to stay with that and to keep putting that information out and to keep actions like this, keep supporting and giving us that input. That's really, I think I'll end there, that it is going to take everyone to sort of make a difference at the end of the day. So thank you.
Thank you all. I think I just want to quickly wrap up with echoing what you've heard. We are all committed to this conversation and committed to getting to action, but we can't do any of it without you. All of the changes that we're going to have to make involve actions that every single one of us are going to have to take. We may put policies in place that make those actions easier to get to, but it's going to be all of us. And it's not going to be just the people in this room who are very passionate and very committed to it. We all need to be working with in our communities to help show people that change is possible. So thank you all, and please stay engaged. I will put the email address up on the board if you want to contact us. I will say you should simply Google Vermont Climate Action Commission if you want to find our website, because it's not easy to find. If I wrote it down, you wouldn't be able to copy it all down because it extends for quite some distance. So thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate your time this evening.